You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
It's a holiday destination that offers great climbing, wonderful high mountain trekking, caving, all manner of water sports, and both camelback and horseback expeditions. Oh, and the weather is perfect for much of the year as well. With credentials like these, it's no surprise that Jordan is quickly establishing itself as an important holiday destination for those who love the great outdoors. Throw into the mix a Bedouin culture that's lasted for thousands of years and some of the most fascinating ancient cities in the world, well, you've got me hooked. Cicerone's experts on Jordan are Di and Tony Howard. I couldn't wait to find out more. Di and Tony, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Morning.
Nice to be here.
Now, we're hearing a lot about the area at the moment, probably down to your guys, and I think Cameron McNeish at TGO has been walking over there recently, hasn't he, and leading trips.
Yeah.
So I hear a lot of people saying, "Wow, that's an interesting destination. I've never thought about that before. Well, that'll be different from the Alps or the Pyrenees." So, I mean, what has it got going for it as an area? What really drew you to it and keeps you going back?
Okay.
It's the people who draw us there because they've got the same personalities as us. You can have a good joke with them, can't they? And of course, the beauty of the place.
Yeah. Initially, of course, we knew there would be Bedouin there, but the attraction was the mountains, and we discovered the mountains quite by chance when we saw the film Lawrence of Arabia back in 1983, and I realised immediately that nobody had climbed in Jordan. So we contacted the tourism ministry just for permission to go because we thought it might be problematic, and we got a letter back saying we're very interested, we want to develop Jordan for adventure tourism, and please come and bring your friends and tell us what we've got. So the mountains were our first.
So literally, as a climber, you saw the film and thought, "Oh, has anybody been there?" And
Exactly.
that kind of pioneering spirit says, "No, I want to do those peaks."
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and when was that, Tony?
That was in 1984.
And you've been going back
20 odd years, yeah.
every year ever since,
and sometimes twice a year. Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously the landscape, when we see it on TV or in the books, is stunning. But what is interesting is there's a whole range of outdoor activity, from walking, climbing, hiking, caving, I think, that
Sure.
you can take part in.
There is. The first few years, well, when we left, we flew into Oman, and they said, "Would you like to travel around the country and have a look?" Which we did first as with the tourism ministry, and we immediately realised that there's all sorts of possibilities for adventure activities out there. And then after about a week, we arrived in Rome, and we're absolutely blown away because there was so many mountains. You think, where are we going to start?
And we never thought we could climb there because it looked massive, didn't it?
It's big, and it's sandstone, and sandstone has its problems, as most climbers know. And then we met the Bedouin, who were still at that time semi-nomadic. 3 or 4 houses in the village, and but all living in tents. And as soon as they saw us, they came across and they said, "Hello, what are you doing here? What can we do for you?" And they took us out to see the sheikh of the desert, Haji Take. Explained what we're doing. We said, "We've come to climb here. If there is any climbing, we'll be writing about it. More people might come. If you think that's a good idea, we'd be very happy. But if you don't want us to come, we'll go away immediately." And they said, "No, it's fantastic. But we've climbed all these mountains." "Oh, fantastic. We'll show you where the Bedouin climbs are." And as it turned out today, despite all the new routes that we and other climbers have done, and some of them are extremely difficult, the best routes in Jordan are the old Bedouin hunting routes. And the French guides who are working out there reckon that they're some of the best mountain adventures in the world, and they are incredible. Some of them go up to grade 5 or VS, and some of them take 2 days, and they're tremendous experiences.
They're lovely. You don't always have to have a rope on, so you can just look around, and it's exploring through these very narrow canyons, and there's trees on top of the mountains. They're really beautiful. All the trees and all the routes go along the desert. Absolutely, you should try it.
Well, one of the things that is fascinating listening to you talking about that is, of course, we we as Europeans think of the Alps and the Alps tradition, which is still quite a young one. You know, when we tend to think of mountaineering as starting at that time, or in starting in the lakes at a certain point in time with the Romantic poets, or whatever. But here we're talking about Bedouin routes that have been going for thousands of years.
Some of them have
and hunting routes.
Inscriptions on which date back 2,000 years from the original Bedouin, the Thamudic hunters of that area. And I think many of these routes have been passed down through generations, and there's now the sons of the people that first showed us these routes are acting as guides, and they were shown the routes by their fathers, and we know that they were shown the routes by their father, and back and back and back. And they're the old ibex hunting the mountain goat.
So, like in so many things in the world, different cultures have often got a much richer tradition of things that we kind of ignore, don't we?
Completely unaware of it. Yeah.
And the hospitality, obviously, that you had from those early Bedouin visitors has stayed through, and they obviously appreciate, and they're developing the guiding schemes themselves now.
Exactly.
And is that now all part of the experience that a modern traveller would expect to get?
Yeah.
If you go with a Bedouin, you have the experience. They always bring a kettle with you, and you have cups of tea up on the mountains, and you have a really good time.
And they can tell you the history of the mountains. They can tell you about the wildlife up there. They'll notice little bits of vegetation, and they'll say, there was an ibex here this morning. You can see where it's been nibbled away, so all sorts of things that you wouldn't actually see. But they're very observant, and they're all ex-hunters, or one or two still hunting, so they're very much aware of the environment.
So not only are you mountaineering or hiking, but you're almost getting that kind of bushcraft experience of understanding how people read the land.
Exactly. And the barren mountains, people think they are, but they're not. There's water up there, right up near the summits. You'd never find it, but it's there, and they know where it is. And quite a lot of them have got a kettle stashed up there. So they don't carry anything with them. They go with nothing. They don't even take a blanket, because they'll have blankets stashed. And so they can travel completely freely up there. They know where the water supplies are. They've got the kettle. They've got a box of matches with them. There's always bits of wood around.
Now, so if I was thinking about going into Jordan for the first time, perhaps do a hiking holiday or climbing, I'm going to get a bit of that flavour. I'm going to get a bit of that experience when I'm going there.
Well, that's what we try and push in our guidebooks, is don't go for the climbing, go for the trekking, whatever, but try and meet up with a Bedouin, get a Bedouin guide, travel through the desert with them, go on a trek, go on a safari, do a Bedouin, even if you're quite competent of going alone, go with the Bedouin guide and enjoy the full experience.
You'll get taken into their tent if they have a family still in the desert, and they feed you with a camel, or a goat with a mouth open with its head on top of the rice, and it's a bit off-putting, but if you eat the bread round the outside of you,
it's the authentic experience.
Yeah, but
and Di, is this something that you'd really need to do your first trek there through an organised company, or is it something where you can follow the guidebook, go to a destination and pick up local guides on route?
You can go on your own. It's if you have names in the guidebook which we've put, they can get in touch with them, and then they'll tell you which way you want to go. But you can go on your own through, start off going through Rakabat Canyon, which is a really nice beginner's canyon, but it's you have to scramble through, and that's then you get the feel of the rock and everything, and it's. That's what
lots of climbers just go and they climb, and they meet Bedouin around, but they don't really spend much time with them. You don't need a guide if you can climb competently at, let's say, VS standard. There's lots to do, and if you want to do harder climbs, they're there as well, and there's still new climbs to be done.
Great. And for somebody looking for a hiking trekking experience, how long would they have to give to make that work? Is it really a 2-week destination, or can it be broken down into smaller packages?
You could go out for a week, but I think
not worth it. Really.
No, if you're going to spend the money on the flight, you really want to be going for a 10-day, a fortnight trip. And you wouldn't, if you're a trekker, you wouldn't spend the whole of that time. Climbing, you'd probably spend all your time in Wadi Rum and have a day in Aqaba diving or snorkeling.
And you want to go to Petra too,
But
definitely.
Everybody wants to visit Petra, which is an hour away on the bus.
Of course, that makes an important point, isn't it? That yes, we may want to go out and climb every day for 2 weeks or trek every day for 2 weeks, but actually in an area as rich in history and culture as this, it's worth taking time out, isn't it, to visit Petra or to look at the history or whatever. You don't just cram your time with outdoor activity. Get to know the look and feel of the place as well.
Absolutely. And that's what travel's always been about for us anyway. It's not just the climbing. Climbing is the reason we go somewhere, but then there's all the other things that one can do having got there. And I don't think anybody will go to Jordan without visiting Petra, which is over 2,000 years old. It's an absolutely awesome place. It's now classified as one of the new 7 wonders of the world. And it's an hour's buzz ride from Wadi Rum. And an hour in the other direction is Aqaba, which is on the Red Sea with snorkeling and diving, which is a fantastic contrast to the dry mountains and the heat of climbing in the desert. But then we discovered that outside Petra there's a whole range of mountains extending for 100 miles, going north into a newly created nature reserve. The Royal Society for Conservation of Nature Jordan created a nature reserve in Dana, which is incredibly beautiful. And you can walk for a week from Dana through the hills to Petra and on through the mountains again and then into the desert, down to Wadi Rum, and another couple of days down to Aqaba. So
you can always do this on horseback as well. As riding from Petra right to Wadi Rum, which is meant to be really incredible. I've never done it. There's just a friend of ours who has a riding school over there, and it's very easy to hire horses, or you can walk it.
Or in fact, go with camels if you want the true Lawrence of Arabia experience.
I know. Bob's wife was telling us that 20 years ago she went to the area and she did it on horseback, and she said it was a very, very exhilarating experience. But you can also do it as a camel trek as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things that's fascinating about this is that, within one holiday destination, you could have a much wider range of kind of outdoor leisure experiences than you could do in most locations.
Absolutely.
A bit of caving, hiking.
If you go in the spring, it's in the north. It's absolutely incredible. There's flowers. You couldn't count them any, and they've got a new book come out on flowers, so you could take this with you on birds and everything. And it's, every single colour of flower. And
it's like alpine meadows.
So it's got something for everybody, really, a bit of everything. Much richer environment than we might think of, but just looking at a picture of dramatic desert landscape.
We've seen people from England, from the people looking for birds, you see them, what are they called? Twitchers out there, and because there's all sorts of migrating birds coming, and in Aqaba, where the sewage place is, you go in there to have a look at these migrating birds, and
doesn't sound romantic, but it's incredible.
The smell isn't there.
The other thing is, as you travel up from Petra going north, you're coming into places like Shobak and Kerak, and eventually to Ajlun. These are all castles built by the Crusaders or built by Saladin, and fantastic places. I mean, we learnt how to build castles. That's where the Crusaders learnt to build the castles, by visiting Arabia. And in all these areas, there's incredible canyons running down into the Jordan Valley, the Dead Sea Valley, and the Rift Valley. Wonderful 1-day, 2-day trips, some of them walking down through rivers, others needing abseiling, and lots still to do. A lot of them haven't, we're still discovering new canyons, new cliffs, new climbs, new treks. It's still opening up. Wonderful place.
It's a region that sounds to have tremendous potential to me, and you obviously love it. And one of the nice things about it is you're still at the beginning of discovering it in a way. Yeah. But it's an area, a region, as a part of the world that you've obviously become very fond of. And talking earlier, we talked about your little excursion into Palestine, which seemed fascinating. Although that it's a very sad story at the moment, but that sounded a fascinating venture.
We did it in the Intifada, which the last bit of the book.
This was a trekking guide to walking through.
It was the Palestinians who started it, and they did all a lot of the field work, and then we carried on because they asked us to come and carry on doing it because they were stuck they couldn't travel like we could. And when we were there, they started the Second Intifada, and we got on and in house arrest once. They wouldn't let us out, the soldiers, out of the house with the Palestinians, and it was a very sad time, really, because it was such a beautiful place, but this wall is taking over now.
And the wall cuts the trek now in about 4 or 5
And the trek was called the Nativity Trail.
It was a Palestinian Authority idea, and it was initiated in 1999, and it was a millennium project to walk in the footsteps of Joseph and Mary from Nazareth to Bethlehem for the millennium, 2,000 years since the birth of Christ. And they'd worked out this incredible route, travelling down through the mountains, away from the roads. So you pretty much got a glimpse of old Palestine. And the whole idea of it was that it would bring people into Palestine to meet Palestinians, grassroots Palestinians, and for the Palestinians to meet people from the outside, because they don't see them, not in these little villages, because people don't go. They can't go. It's very difficult to go. So for us, it was a great experience and a very important book, we felt, bringing people into Palestine to meet Palestinians and to see what life is really like in Palestine. And we'd avoided going, actually, to Palestine. We'd been going out to Jordan then for about 15 years, and we kept out of it because we didn't like what was happening there, and we felt that by going we were in some way condoning what was happening, so we'd avoided it until the Palestinians asked us to go, and we thought, right,
they're really nice people, the Palestinians, really friendly and helpful.
It's a tragedy, it really is a tragedy.
And I guess for many people the notion of doing that trek would have been, a once in a lifetime, a very special experience.
It was. I mean, there was a British vicar with us, and we are sort of we're Christian background, obviously, but we're not churchgoers. But it was wonderful travelling with this guy.
So he used to get his Bible out and read the parts where we were stood.
Right. So you're actually literally following those ancient story paths.
Thinking, did it really happen? This kind of thing, But he was okay.
And finished in the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. It was a wonderful experience, and it should have been a pilgrimage trail, but it's now impossible because of the wall, which cuts through it all over. It's grabbed so much land. I mean, we were well inside Palestine, but the wall is even farther in and just winds down the West Bank and cuts through the path of the trail.
I mean, it is an international tragedy, and let's just hope that at some point we're going to be able to pick up on that again. And it's because it sounds a remarkable experience, really.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
But back to Jordan, still a lot to do, still a lot to explore in future years.
Just these last few months finished the second edition of the trekking and canyoning and caving guide, because we found some caves as well. So that will be out this year. And earlier the year we finished I think it was the fourth edition of the Wadi Rum climbing guide. And there's just one thing I would like to add. A lot of people say, are you going to Jordan again? Is it safe? Of course it's safe. There's no problem in Jordan. And very interestingly, I brought a little quote with me. I had an email off an American climber who's been doing our routes and exploring for new routes. And he said, in fact, he said, American climber James Garrett says, the Bedouin and all Jordanians we encountered were the most gracious, most gracious and generous of hosts imaginable. Welcome to Jordan is how all visitors seem to be greeted. Americans, still fearful of travelling to any Muslim country, are missing out. Jordan is a gentle, friendly and safe land, unforgettable climbing where Moses once walked.
So it's not something we should worry about, but it's something that gives us a completely new dimension to our walking, our trekking, mountaineering, even horseback riding in that sense. So it seems it's something that lots of people want to be looking at. Now, as always with the guides, they're pretty comprehensive. They tell you how to get there, Access, is that getting reasonably easy now?
They're very easy to access into Jordan. You just get the visa at the airport, and there you are. You're in, and you can get a taxi straight away outside the airport and straight into Amman to get a small hotel or an expensive hotel. They have 5-star to 2-star, which are a bit. The first one I went to, somebody's shoes were under my bed. It wasn't very nice, but this is typical Tony, expense. So,
Dash the expense, and presumably there's not a difficulty in finding accommodation with there. You literally can get off the plane, take that taxi ride and follow the guide, and you'll be okay.
Yeah. And the buses, the Trust bus modern. And the Jet bus are so modern. They have people giving you drinks and you go straight down into Aqaba. And you're there in 4 or 5 hours.
And just thinking about temperature, what's the best time of the year to go?
Spring is the best. Is the
April.
A beautiful time, and October is good too. But
springtime, you have the flowers, and there's still water about from the winter rain, so it's a really nice time of year to go.
But people have been going all winter now, haven't we?
People going right through from late September right through to.
And what's
late
winter
May.
like? Because some of the terrain is quite high.
Cold
Is it
and
cold and damp?
rainy a bit, but they haven't had any rain this year, and they're all very worried.
And it can snow. It definitely will snow up north every winter around the Ajlun area, up towards Syria and the hills up there. And very occasionally it snows down in Wadi Rum. I've not seen it myself. I've seen pictures of it, but it disappears within a couple of days.
So it's an all year destination, but probably best to avoid the searing heat of the summer.
End of May through to early September, it's too hot for most, I would say.
Yeah, it's only the infrastructure that is being built up. We talked about the Bedouins now working as guides and all the rest of it. But that's not to say this isn't an area without its risk and without adventure. If you want to, you can be in quite exposed places, I guess, where you're quite a long way from assistance.
You can. And even in Wadi Rum, people, even very competent climbers, sometimes successfully do the climb and get lost on the mountain tops and take a couple of days to come down. So there have been call outs just to find people, and there have been accidents because the rock is sandstone, and there is no organised rescue team in Jordan. Having said that, the Royal Jordanian Air Force have always responded with helicopters, and the Bedouin, as they always have done in the past, right through their background, they've always come out immediately to help with any emergency, and they've carried out they've carried out all the rescues in Wadi Rum very, very competently. And if there are British, European visiting climbers in the area, obviously they go along and help. One of the problems is that there's no proper equipment. They have got a stretcher, but it's not a very modern stretcher. So they have to do the best that they can with the equipment. So if you're going to be climbing without guides, you need to be climbing competently and well within your standard.
And always tell everybody where you're going. This is a very important thing, because they're very, very hard in the mountains. Complicated. Aren't they?
So this is a place that has something for everybody. There are organised treks, the things that you do quite happily on their own, up to the experienced adventurous mountaineer who is in risky territory, and we need to treat it as that. I mean, we've obviously had the concerns about whether this is a peaceful place to walk in or not, and obviously it is. But women thinking about that part of the world, is there anything that women as travellers or independent travellers would need to worry about?
No, you don't need to worry about anything in Jordan at all, but, dress sensible. Like, you wouldn't wear really small shorts in the desert, just be sensible. I've never had any trouble at all with any Jordanian or Bedouin, and there's quite a few English people who live, or two who live in the hotel, isn't there, Jill, in Aqaba, and there's a couple of French girls who live in Wadi Rum dealing with the officers and the horse, and we have no trouble at all. They're very friendly.
Well, Di, Tony and I could have talked for a lot longer about that Bedouin tradition, about their rich cultural history and about their fabulous hospitality, and indeed we did. Maybe we'll get to hear a little bit more about that at a future date. We were talking about Cicerone's 2 guides to Jordan. The first, Jordan, Walks, Treks, Caves, Climbs and Canyons by Di and Tony Howard, looks at routes found in Jordan's recently formed nature reserves. The second, Treks and Climbs in the Wadi Rum, Jordan by Tony Howard, looks at what's now become the world's leading desert climbing and trekking area. As you heard in the interview, both books are packed full of all the practical information you'll need to create the most memorable of trips. As ever, both guides are available either directly from Cicerone or from good bookshops everywhere.
This sponsored programme is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk.